Mike Brennan, Barry Habib. We are so excited to have you. We are going to give it a couple minutes to load up the chat. Load up. We are now over 1,000 people, and I'm already seeing comments here in the chat. So we're going to cover that, Michelle. That's why you can't see everyone. Hi, everyone. My name is Jake Failing, Vice President of Marketing for Movement Mortgage. We're based here in Charlotte, North Carolina, top 10 retail lender in the country. And it is an absolute pleasure to have, yes, Movement people on the call, but we know that there are many guests attending. Barry Habib is a big name, as always, drawing people in. So thank you very much for taking time out of your busy day to join us. We encourage people in the chat to drop in where you're from. So yes, you can see hosted panelists. So we are seeing your comments. Don't worry. Mike, Barry, and I are seeing your comments. Please don't hesitate to drop it in. We're seeing it. We love the engagement. We are going to pick out some questions. Oh, wow, the chat is exploding, as we could see where people are calling in from. I would love to call it out, but literally I can't see the locations. It's going so fast. But we're going to pull out questions, and we'll try to save some time at the end because Barry's got a lot of goodness that we want to be sure to impart on you guys over the next hour or so. All right, so we're at 102, so we're going to get started. Again, my name is Jake Failing, Vice President of Marketing and Movement Mortgage. Thank you so much. Joined today by Mike Brennan, President of Movement Mortgage, and Barry Habib, CEO of MBS Highway. Mike is going to talk for a little bit after me, and he's going to help tee up Barry. But first, I want to introduce you to, if this is the first time, maybe you're hearing Barry for the first time today, wanted to give you a little context of, what is it, Nostradamus? Is that basically Mike's going to tee it up? What, Barry, you told us back in June that pretty much exactly transpired in November. But I want to give a little background to Barry, CEO of MBS Highway, American entrepreneur and frequent media resource for his mortgage and housing expertise. Look at this. Amazon #1 bestseller author for his book, Money in the Streets, widely credited for saving the mortgage industry in 2020. Margin calls due to Fed actions. His presentation to the Fed created stability at a critical time. He's got tons of awards. We're going to name a few. 3-time Crystal Ball Award winner by Zillow and Pulsenomics for the most accurate real estate forecast out of 150 of the top economists in the U.S. 2019 Mortgage Professional of the Year. I was runner-up, Barry, that year. I'm still bitter that you topped me. Finalist for the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year. Named to Mortgage Global 100 list, the St. Armand Ventures Businessman of the Year in 2021. Named to the list of 100 people to watch in 2023. Spoiler alert, keep your eye on him next year. As an innovator, Barry has founded many successful businesses across different verticals: Mortgage Market Guide, Healthcare Imaging Solutions, Certified Mortgage Associates, founding partner in Experience.com. Many of us are familiar with that platform. I know Movement is a proud part of that. During his mortgage sales career, Barry personally originated over $2 billion in volume, lead producer and managing partner for Rock of Ages, the 27th longest running show in Broadway history. You're just going to sprinkle in Broadway stuff here, Barry. Produced Chris Angel's Mind Freak at Planet Hollywood in Vegas, highest rated speaker and trainer for over 25 years in mortgage and real estate. And finally, and as a graduate of this, Barry's certified mortgage advisor, CMA course, is renowned for elevating the level of professionalism and mortgage knowledge in the industry. Long story short, Barry knows his stuff. Mike, I have given you Barry's bio. I know you got a few words to say because you and Barry go way back.
Yeah, no, thank you, Jake. What a setup. You are the hype man, that's for sure. And Barry, man, great to be with you. And man, team, just all the team members, partners that are joining us from all over the country. We're just so excited. We're just so excited because after that whole long list of everything that Jake put up there, most important thing that I can say and I can add to it is friend also. And that's how me personally, I've seen Barry since the first time I've met him, 15 years ago, I think was the first time I met him. Just the partnership, the relationship that he has with Casey, Toby, our entire team here at Movement Mortgage. And when you have somebody like Barry, when you have a friend like that, what do you want to do? You want to share it. You want to share it with your team members. You want to share it with your partners. Because Jake, as you said, yeah, we had a call back in June where Barry came in to Movement Mortgage, talked to the whole team about, hey, this is where we're at and this is where we're heading, and really gave us the kind of guides and the tools and the resources that we could utilize to be prepared for the market. Because, all's well that begins well because you're prepared for it. You're prepared for what's coming ahead. And Barry, I'll never forget when we were sitting there in June and you actually said, you're like, all right, November 10th, this is what we're going to be looking at. You're going to see rates go up. November 10th, you're going to see them start to track down. And I know we were all sitting there saying, man, I hope Barry's right. And, but then we just started to see things happening. And I remember in November when I saw it and I'm like, you know what? Barry's info is solid. He showed us, he not only just told us, but he told us why it was going to happen. And he had us look back and really get a glimpse into history, which I know is some things that Barry's going to share today, just to understand kind of where we're heading and that these are cycles that we can be prepared for and we can take advantage of because we know in this market, right? We can look for challenges or we can look for opportunities. And the thing that I love is every time, Barry, we have a call with you and the team members, you leave them fired up. You leave them excited about what's going to happen in the market. And they see where most people would see things as challenges, we see them as opportunities to capitalize on. And because Barry's been working with our team, with our leadership, we've seen explosive growth in the fourth quarter where we added almost 20% to our sales force just in the fourth quarter alone. One of the best recruiting quarter ever. But it's because of our relationships and it's because of these trusted advisors in Barry that help us navigate through this market. So Barry, I'm just so excited that you're here with us. And just so you guys know, this was Barry coming to us saying, hey, it wasn't us asking, hey, can you jump on with our realtor partners, our finance partners? Barry said, hey, you need me to get you on with all your partners. Let me share this info so they are prepared for the market that's coming on board. So this is Barry coming to us like he always does, being that friend and that resource and say, hey, let me help you guys out. Let me give you guys some tools and some tricks and really talk about what this incredible system can help build your business. So Barry, with that, man, I'm going to hand it over to you. I'm just, again, so grateful that you spend this time like that you always do with us.
Well, I'm really grateful too. And as you said, I'm grateful for our friendship. Jake, thanks for the very kind words and thanks for your friendship and to you and Casey and Toby and, Mike, I appreciate you so much. And you guys are great leaders and everyone on the call. Thank you for giving the most precious asset that you have, your time. And I promise you, we're going to make it worthwhile for you today because I want to start off by telling you the news is good and the media is not seeing it, but then they never really do because good news doesn't sell. And I know it's easy to get discouraged right now. It's easy to have fears. We're hearing a lot of things about housing bubble. There's a lot of misunderstandings with the Fed's role. I'm going to break it down for you today. Here's the catch. You just got to focus. Okay. So let's take this thing, put it aside for the next hour because you're going to walk away from this with information and knowledge and wisdom that will help you, help your career, but really help you share it with your customers and change their lives and make a difference because there's opportunity out there. We're going to be talking about opportunity and seeing that opportunity before everybody else does. Seeing beyond the headlights, see the future before it becomes obvious. That's what we're going to do today. So happy holidays first, everybody. Happy Hanukkah's first day of Hanukkah. So hope everyone is in great spirits and looking forward to a great future ahead. So there's a lot of talk about housing bubble. Is that going to happen? Well, housing is very related to interest rates, as you know. So we want to take a look at mortgage rates and see where they're headed. Because if mortgage rates are indeed going to stay high, then obviously it presents some challenges. But if mortgage rates come down, still tight inventory out there. And in a tight inventory environment with a lot more buyers, well, you've seen what that does to the market. So what's driving mortgage rates and how can we see where they're headed? And some of the things that you guys are both so kind to explain as to some of those forecasts, I'm going to just show you how to do it for yourselves today. That's the key, is to show you and teach you how you can see this happening and help your customers and be a great resource and beat those competitors that are out there. They're trying to take those customers away from you as a real estate agent. So here we go. First off, as far as the Fed's role, the Fed is not looking to cause mortgage rates to rise. They don't really control mortgage rates with their Fed hikes and cuts. Now, when the Fed was buying mortgage-backed securities directly, yes, they were influencing rates, but they're not doing that right now. And Fed rate hikes don't cause mortgage rates to go up, or cuts don't make mortgage rates come down, but inflation does. Any type of a long-term bond where a recipient is getting a fixed payment over a long period of time, like a mortgage. If you're receiving payments, it's a fixed amount for a long period of time. What happens is that over time, that fixed payment that you're getting due to inflation whittling away the buying power, because inflation means prices are going up. So you get a fixed payment. It just doesn't buy as much. It doesn't feel like it used to feel as far as its buying power. So the check amount stays the same, but it's eroding over time. Now, when inflation is very low, the erosion is very small, so you can offer a low rate. But as inflation rises, the only way you could offset that is to charge a higher rate, and that's what we've seen today. Inflation has risen, and as a result, mortgage rates have gone up. But of late, inflation's shown signs of coming down a little bit, and we've seen mortgage rates come down. They've come down quite a bit. They were over 7%. Now they're kind of in the lower 6 range. So let's take a look and let's see. I'm going to show you some charts here, and let's go over this together. So first off, I do believe that this is the opportunity that you have been waiting for in housing. I really, truly think that if we could see beyond the headlights and see the future before it becomes obvious, we can offer advice to our customers that they will be very grateful for. So let's take it step by step. I mentioned to you that inflation and mortgage rates travel similarly. Well, here's over the past several years, the bottom line being inflation, the top line here in blue being mortgage rates. Inflation goes up, mortgage rates go up. Inflation comes down, mortgage rates come down. Inflation goes sideways, mortgage rates go sideways. Inflation bumps, mortgage rates bump. And then we had the shaded areas are recessions, followed by the COVID lockdown. So, you had a couple of things happen back to back with each other. And where we saw the Fed step in was the Fed said, hey, what we're going to do is we're going to buy mortgage-backed securities with quantitative easing, or QE. And you see this 3% line. Notice what the Fed did was they kept mortgage rates right around 3% for a long period of time here. Well, that was great for us, but something interesting was happening in the economy. Inflation, which was very low, was like 1%. See it down here? Started to go up. Now, the Fed didn't understand it. They said, hey, it's transitory. It means it'll pass. Inflation will come back down. But it didn't. Inflation kept taking off. And finally, the Fed woke up and they stopped buying mortgage-backed securities. And as you could see, what did mortgage rates do? They did what they always do. They follow inflation. As inflation went up, mortgage rates went up. When inflation took a little bit of a breather in the late spring, so did mortgage rates. But then as inflation picked up again, mortgage rates picked up. And then when inflation started coming down a little bit, mortgage rates came down alongside with it. And that's what we've seen for the past month. So if we know inflation is so important, what is inflation and what can the Fed do for inflation? Well, simply, inflation is too many dollars chasing too few goods. Now, of all the money that's out there, 90% of these dollars is done on credit. Isn't that amazing? 90% is done on credit. And to give you an example, if someone were to go to buy a car, and let's say they were doing this 7 or 8 months ago. They go to see a car. They like this $60,000 car, and they say, okay, what's the payment? $600 a month. They say, I'll take it. Now, they don't write a check. They don't put any money down, but they sign a piece of paper, and they drive off with the car. Wow. So where did the money come from? Somebody at a lender made a few keystrokes, and then poof, out of thin air, money was created. Isn't that amazing? And you see this all the time with businesses. If a business wants to build a factory or expand, they take out a loan for hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, back 6 or 8 months ago, that rate of interest was very, very low. The Fed funds rate was at 0. So maybe you paid 2% above that. That made that car payment low. It made credit cards payments lower. Home equity lines of credit, personal loans, business loans were all a lot cheaper. So the economics made sense. But today, that Fed funds rate has gone from 0 to 4.25, which that's a big difference. So maybe the economics don't make sense anymore. So you don't borrow that money. Now, while the Fed doesn't control mortgage rates, all those other loans are controlled by the Fed funds rate, like those business loans, like credit cards, like personal loans, home equity loans, and car loans. So today, that same family might look at that car and say, hey, how much is it? It's a $60,000 car. What's the payment? Well, instead of it being $600 a month, it's $1,000 a month. And maybe that family says, you know what? Maybe I'll drive the car I have a little bit longer, and they don't buy the car. And nobody at a lender makes a keystroke entry, and there's no, boom, $60,000 created out of thin air. So that's happening multiplied millions of times. And what you see is a lot less money out there. So when the Fed hikes rates, they slow demand and borrowing slows. So that helps to kind of slow things down on inflation. But you may have also noticed that today you can get a rate of return in the bank, saving money. Hey, 6 months ago, you couldn't get anything, right? So people would rather spend it than save it. But today, look, a 6-month treasury, very, very safe. You can get almost 5%. So maybe people are saying, instead of spending it, I'll save it. And that takes money out of the system. So you see less dollars at the same time goods are flowing. In fact, goods are flowing so much because our supply line's fixed. The imports from China have been fixed because they shut down at the Shanghai port. And in fact, goods are flowing so much that we're seeing inventories build. This is a picture of inventory for the past several years. And you can see inventories were building, and then we got shut down. You couldn't get supplies, so inventories were depleted. And then when they started to come back, the ships out of China stopped. But since, look at inventories to their highest level. In fact, there's more inventory, which means that retailers will discount. You probably are seeing this in your email, right? Every day, sale, 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 sale. When it was for Thanksgiving, it was Black Friday sale, then it was every day was, a sale. And then you had, of course, all of the cyber sales that continued. And even till today, your inbox is probably full of discounts. Why? Because there's just too much inventory out there. And what that's going to do is cause sales and prices to come down. As prices come down, inflation comes down. When inflation comes down, mortgage rates come down. So how do we measure inflation? So one of the ways to measure inflation is the Consumer Price Index. That's the CPI. So I want to explain how this works. There's the CPI has a overall headline number, and then they have something called the core rate of inflation. Now, the core rate takes away food prices and energy prices. And many of us might say, well, we kind of need food and energy, right? Yes, and that's of course true. But the Fed wants to look at things that could have influence over. And energy prices or food prices are oftentimes going to be affected by, OPEC, whether they're going to produce more or less, or weather conditions making food cost more or less. The Fed can hike or cut rates. It's not going to have an influence on those things. So they look at the core rate of inflation, and that's the one that's important to the Fed. Now, the CPI is one measurement of that, and right now the core rate of CPI is 6% year over year. So how do they come up with the 6%? Well, it's actually made up of 12 individual months of inflation readings. And the most recent one that we got was last week. We got the inflation reading for November. We got that on December 13th. We got it for November. And when you take November of 2022, when you go back 12 months to December of 2021, you add them all up together, account for a little rounding and compounding, and you get 6% year over year. That's how the inflation rate's calculated. So interest rates have come down over the past month and a half. Why? Because inflation's been coming down. You see, if you look at the numbers we got for October of 2022 and November of 2022, when they came out, they replaced October of 2023 and November of 2023. So you see how 0.6 was replaced by 0.3. That made the inflation rate come down. And then 0.5 replaced by 0.2, well, that made it come down again. So inflation's gone from 6.6 down to 6, and mortgage rates have come down accordingly, which has been great for us. Now, Mike had mentioned that we talked about back in June, inflation was going to come down in the month of November. So let's talk about how we knew that so you can do this yourself. In June of 2022, a lot of people were saying inflation had peaked. Why? Because June of 2022 came in at 0.7. It replaced June of 2021 at 0.8, and inflation started to come down. But most people don't look at this. The vast, vast, vast majority don't understand this or look at this the way we're breaking it down for you. So why did we say that inflation was not going to come down? And we said, in fact, it was going to be a brutal summer. And we said, brace yourself. You're going to have a lot of heartburn, and you'll see mortgage rates go up. And that was because in June, it was the first time the Fed increased rates by 0.75%. It takes time for that to filter through. And they had several other hikes after that. They had 3 more hikes of 0.75%. They just hiked last week by 0.5%. So when we saw that happening, we said it was going to take time. In addition to that, supply chains were not fixed by then. So we didn't see any reason why inflation would come down. We thought inflation, in fact, would be a little bit stubborn. But we felt by October, inflation would start to calm down. And it's also what we saw was when the July, August, and September numbers were going to come out in 2022, it was going to replace these numbers for 2021. Now, do you notice anything about these 2021 numbers? They were all very low. So we thought that there was a chance that higher numbers would come out, replacing lower numbers. We thought what that was going to do was going to push inflation higher and mortgage rates higher. And that's exactly what happened. Inflation went from the mid fives to the mid sixes year over year. Mortgage rates went from a little under 6% to a little over 7% at that same time. But then we said, look for November 10th, because that's when we're going to get the data for October of 2022, replacing higher data for October 21. And we thought the market would like it. And sure enough, it did. Now, we've seen mortgage rates come down almost 1% just since November 10th because of these numbers replacing these numbers here. What's the future hold? So let's look at this together. We know that the inflation readings that are going to come out will likely continue to be lower for all the reasons I told you earlier. More supply, more inventory, demand is slowing. It's more expensive to take out money. So we know that things are going to slow down. So inflation's slower. It's going to replace higher numbers. Look at the numbers for December of 2021, January and February 2022 over the next 3 months. And then certainly in the spring, we're going to see a lot of numbers come in lower, replacing higher numbers. So this inflation number is going to come down, 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 down. But there's also something else we should know. Do you know that 39% of this core CPI, 39% of it is shelter, the cost of putting a roof over your head? Owner's equivalent rent or rental costs make up 39% of it. And the way that it's calculated is interesting because we know that those costs are decelerating quite a bit here. And there's where we are in real time. But the way that inflation looks at it in the reports and the Fed looks at it, it lags because they average the past year. Think about a lease. Not every lease is going to be renewed, right? So you're keeping on to those leases you had back in here when it was higher. They'll eventually start to renew here. So you're going to see this decelerating. It's kind of like a roller coaster. There comes a point in time with that first big hill where the front of the roller coaster starts heading lower while the back is still going up. Kind of like this, right? So the way it's happening in real time, shelter costs are decelerating. But in CPI, they're pushing it higher. In the last 2 inflation reports, every single area of inflation came down, but shelter, which represents 39% of it, was being pushed up. When we get to January, all this will get through the hill. Now, that's not going to come out until February because the way this works is in a lag. As you get into the spring months, all of these shelter costs will start to be more reflective of this here. And you'll start to see inflationary pressures come down faster and faster and faster. That's good news for us. Now, one more thing. This Friday, you're going to get another inflation report. It's kind of like the CPI, but it's just a little bit different. And the Fed actually likes this one more. It's called the PCE, Personal Consumption Expenditures. Now, this report on Friday should also show lower inflation, but I think it's going to be even better. You know why? Because shelter is 39.3% of CPI, but it's half that weighting in the PCE. So I feel there's reason to believe that we might get more favorable inflation readings this Friday morning when that PCE number comes out. And I think it's reason to believe that mortgage rates should behave very nicely for us on that day. Now, where are we going from here? Well, a lot of times if you want to know where you're headed, you have to look at history. And nobody has looked at this, but I'm sure other people now will start to show this. But we took a look and we brought up 35 years of history. And I want to show you the bottom line in blue. That is the 10-year Treasury yield. And the top line in yellow, that's mortgage rates on a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. Now, you look at the chart over 35 years, it's a lot of data compressed in a short period of time here, or this chart. And they look like they travel in similar manner, with the mortgage rates being higher than the 10-year Treasury by, on average, about 1.75% to 2%, or 175 basis points to 200 basis points. That's what it means if you're not familiar with basis points. This means 1.75% to 2%. Now, on a day-to-day basis, they're not going to be exact. Remember, this is 35 years of stuff compressed, right? So on one day, mortgage rates might be moving up while the 10-year Treasury is moving down, or vice versa. But over time, certainly they're similar. All these arrows are equal in size. So you could see they maintain this pretty much this good spread over time. But something crazy happened a couple of months ago where the 10-year Treasury was at around a little over 4, but mortgage rates went to over 7. Now that's not 1.75% or 2%. That's 3% or 300 basis points. So what the heck happened? Okay, please follow me here. This is high level, but you can understand this. When you write your check to your mortgage holder, they don't own the mortgage. They're just doing the work on the mortgage. They're just collecting the payments and doing other work. It's called a servicer. You see, holding a mortgage is too risky, not because of repayment, but if interest rates fluctuate a lot, the value and the return that you're getting will be below market, and therefore the value of your holdings will be light. So that's why everyone sells those mortgages. So part of that is that someone still has to do the work. The servicer has to collect the payments, make the payments to the taxes, the insurance, answer your questions, tell you what your payoff is, try and track you down if you're late. All those things is the job of the servicer. And they get paid for that. They receive a fee. Now, the value of that fee depends on how long they're going to service it. And most of the time, mortgages stick around for 4, 5, 6 years. So you can take that payment that you're getting times 4 or 5 or 6 years, and it's a lot. It's a lot of value that goes into the value of a mortgage, which means the greater the value, the lower the interest rate. Okay, everybody in the mortgage industry knows when you see prices in the bond market go up, more value, that's better for rates. You want to see bond prices go up because rates come down. But of late, the servicing value that was attributed to it has been completely sucked out. Very, very little value. Why? Because the smartest money in the world is agreeing with us. They're saying rates are going to come down, and they're going to come down significantly, which means that all of the mortgages that are out there today will be refinanced or paid off because people aren't going to keep a 7% or a 7+% mortgage when rates come back down. And that means that they're not going to collect that servicing fee for years. In fact, it's not going to be measured in years. It'll be measured in months, which means it has very little to no value. And lower value in bonds, higher interest rate. And that's why you've seen the spread go from, let's say, 2% to 3%. See, normally when you have a 4% yield on the 10-year, well, mortgage rates are around 6. You see it here. When it's a 5% on the 10-year, mortgage rates are 7. So you could see that relationship. But now we've seen the 10-year come down from 4% plus, was like 4.3, all the way down to 3.5. And I believe it's going to get under 3. You saw those inflation numbers. That's going to make the 10-year go under 3. Now, mortgage rates will come down faster than that because as mortgage rates go from 7 to 6, more servicing value gets added, and the spread will be reduced. As they go from 6 to 5, more servicing value gets added, and the spread will be reduced to more of a normal spread. We're already seeing it happen. We've seen in just the past 5 weeks that spreads reduced to 275 basis points. It's still above normal, but you could see how this comes down faster. And where will mortgage rates go? Well, let's look at history. I believe the 10-year Treasury is headed for 3% or lower as those inflation numbers come out. Look, it's not going to be in a straight line, but by the first half of next year, it's around the corner, okay? We're embarking in a couple of weeks. In 2023, we're going to be, right? So you believe it? You believe 2022 is over in a couple of weeks? Wow. So we're going to be in the first half of 2023, not in the too far distant future. We will see the 10-year Treasury come down here. And what does that mean for mortgage rates? They will act like they normally do because the servicing value will be back. And when the 10-year Treasury gets to around 3, mortgage rates will be at around 5 or even less than that. So the good news is you're going to see 5% mortgage rates early to the first half of next year. As you get there, you're going to unleash all these buyers that want to buy a home, that are looking to get that home of their dreams, but they got a little sticker shock at 7+%. And you're also going to get people that are more willing to move because today to give up my 3% rate on the house I live in and go and buy a home, which might be the home I really want, but to take on a 7% rate, that's hard to do. But maybe I'll give up 3% on the home I have now and take 4.75 or 5 if it means getting the home of my dreams. You're going to see much more activity. Now, you're also going to see a recession. If we're not in one already, there will be a recession coming. There's a lot of things, the inverted yield curve. There's so many factors that are driving this. But one of the things that people are saying is, why haven't we seen it already? Well, we may have because you know you're in a recession a year after it starts. That's when you finally know that you were in a recession. That's when they officially call it. but it might be postponed because consumers are now living off their credit cards. We have more credit card debt than ever. Look at what they've done. Here was COVID shutdown, so there was nothing for them to spend on, right? You were locked in your house and there was no goods in the stores. Plus you got your stimulus to pay it off. But since we've reopened, we've exceeded the previous high by a lot. And at the same time, I guess people like the lifestyle, we've seen a big drawdown in savings. This is the stimulus. Stimulus 1, stimulus 2, stimulus 3. Notice the savings rate went up, but notice how quickly it's come down, and it's really, really way down to well below pre-COVID levels. So people are living off credit cards and savings now. That leads to recessions. So what does a recession mean first for mortgage rates? Well, let's take a look at the past several recessions, and you can see mortgage rates go down during recessions. Here they went down by 1% and then down afterwards. Here down by more than 1% and down more. Almost 1%, but then a lot more. More than 2% and more. 5%, 4%. You get the picture. Mortgage rates will come down. So if you're saying, look, is it realistic that mortgage rates could get to 5% or less? Yes, 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 yes. Okay, but what about real estate? Now, this is important for us because our customers are going to be bombarded with negative media. Oh, housing crash, housing bubble, recession, don't buy a home. That's what the media is going to tell your customers. Let's look at the facts and let's understand this. I want you to pay close attention because this is very critical that you understand this. So let's all look at this together. The darker areas are recessionary periods. The white line is the price of homes according to the best indicator, the Case-Shiller House Price Index. Notice in 8 of 9 recessions, home values went up during and after the recession. Only once did we not see that. But it wasn't the recession that caused the housing bubble. It was the housing bubble that led us into recession. So why did we have a housing bubble? Well, first of all, we had crazy products that we don't have today, right? I mean, think about it. Remember the crazy loans? Basically, go ahead and here, can you fog up this mirror? You're approved, right? No income. Why do you need an income? Sure. No asset, no job, right? 0 down payment and investor property. Sure. Credit, 580 credit score. Sure. It was crazy back then and the market was made available. But today we don't have any of that. But there was a deeper reason. Those were just sideshows. The real reason why you had the housing bubble was like with everything. Prices are determined from supply and demand. There was just too much supply and not enough demand. Now, how do we measure supply in the housing market? That's measured by builders putting up homes and completing them. That's new supply. It's not somebody selling their home because they're going to need to live someplace else, right? So builders completing and putting new inventory on the market. Now, remember, every year about 100,000 homes get retired. So that means builders actually have to build more homes than demand to keep it flat. Because of aging, those homes get retired. Now, how do we measure demand? Demand is measured by something called household formations. Let me give you an example. Let's say you got mom, dad, and a child. They're all living in one household. At some point in that time, the child grows up, and in the United States, the average age is 33, and they move out and they get their own place. So that child now is living in their own household. So here you got the same family unit, mom, dad, and a child, but now instead of one household, they need 2. That's a household formation. And this chart shows you in blue, household formations, followed by in gold, how many homes were being built. Now let's go back all the way to 2004. And you can see it was pretty close. Builders building a little more because they have to, due to the fact that some homes get retired from aging. And the market was balanced. But something crazy happened in 2006. Holy cow. Household formations fell off a cliff, and then they fell again the next year, stayed low, and then came back. What the heck happened here? Well, builders didn't look at this demographic information because builders built more homes than they ever built. 2 million homes. We haven't been close to that. Not even by 500,000 homes, we haven't been close to it. And then 2007, something similar. 2008, by that time, you had a full-blown housing bubble, 2009, 10. Too much supply, not enough demand. Today, the housing market's been great because too much demand, not enough supply. Now, I think it's important for us to understand this because can this happen again, right? And what if it does? Well, that could be problematic, right? Or we should understand if things are different today, so maybe there isn't a housing bubble because people just don't understand this stuff. So let's look deeper. First of all, builders aren't building this number of homes. As you could see, they built last year 600,000 less homes than they did during the peak. But what about household formations? This big drop is concerning. Could that happen again? Well, why were there such fewer 33-year-olds in 2006? Perhaps it has to do with when they were born. And here's where it gets interesting. Let's look at birth rates from 33 years before 2006. So rewind the clock. That means these people were 33 in 2006. That means they were born in 1973. Let's see, was there a drop in birth rates in 1973 and 74? Let's look. Ah, isn't that amazing? 1973, right here. Let's look. Big drop in birth rates. And again in 1974. They stayed flat and then they went up. Hey, that looks a lot like this. Big drop in birth rates, drop again, stayed flat and went up. Why? Why did that happen? I'll give you the reason. Because in 1973, abortions were legalized in January of 73. So you had fewer births here and here, then they stayed flat. Now, please, I'm not getting political. I'm not saying for or against. I'm just giving you the statistical reason why birth rates dropped so we understand what had happened here causing that. Now, if we want to look in 2023 at the crop of 33-year-olds, let's look at when they were born. They were born in 1990. In 1990, look at these births. So you have more 33-year-olds coming to market in 2023, certainly so much more than you did in 2006, at the same time where the number of homes being built is much fewer. Now, how many households are we forming in the current market? About 1.7 million. But the last 2 months, because this is the shock of interest rates going up. Now, remember, the data is delayed. Okay, this is showing you September and October because the data doesn't come out. We'll get the data for November on Wednesday of this week. We'll get the data for November. But this shows you how many households are being formed in the United States. And right now, it's dropped to 1.3 over the past 2 months. Why? Why did it drop so much? It was at 1.7 because in September and October, you had 7% mortgage rates and people got sticker shock. But as you can see here, even in the high 5 mortgage rate realm, people were still forming about 1.75 million households. The last 2 months, they said, I'm staying home with mom and dad a little longer because I don't like 7% rates. When rates come back down, we'll go back to 1.7 million. Now, how many homes are builders completing? Well, today they're completing 1.4 million. Remember, they've got to build 100,000 more than the demand because they replace about 100,000 homes. So net, we're seeing new supply of 1.3 and household formations of 1.3. And that's why the real estate market, even with all the negative stuff the media is saying, it was down last month in price, 0.1% after a huge run-up. So you could see as the market starts to see lower interest rates, the demand will increase and prices will do well. But the media is going to keep pounding the table and harping on all this negative stuff that they do. And there's many people out there, but the poster child for this has been CNBC's Diana Olick, who's done nothing but talk negatively about the media to your about the housing market in the media to your customers for the past 8 years. So let's go back for the past 8 years. And of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of negative stories that she's put out every single time, not one positive story, let's just see her track record and see some of the things she said. So we pulled a few headlines. And back in October of 2015, she said, back then, 8 years ago, she said, oh, we're in a bubble larger than 2006. Well, of course, we weren't in a bubble, and prices have gone straight up since then. And if you got scared and didn't buy a $300,000 home in that 1 year alone, you missed out on 5% appreciation, or on that home, $15,000. So the next year, she offers no apologies. She says, oh, we're in a new housing bubble. Oh, really? Prices went up again, 5.4% or $17,000. Then the next year, she says, home ownership doesn't build wealth. Well, can you show me the one person, just one person, that in the last 5 years did not build wealth in real estate? Please. Not one person could say that. And of course, in that 1 year, you missed out on 6% or $20,000. The following year, she says, hey, it's better to rent than buy a home. Do you know anyone for the past 4 years says, I'm so glad I didn't buy a home, and I'm so glad I've been a renter paying my landlord's rent for the last 4 years while prices have skyrocketed? No, she's been wrong every single time. And of course, prices went up that year. So in the middle of 2019, she puts out this big lead up to this story. Hey, before you buy your next home, don't miss Diana's story. Before you buy it, people tuned in and they heard her say this. The housing market's about to shift in a bad way for buyers. Rent, don't buy. Well, of course it didn't do that, and prices went up again. Her forecast at the end of 2019 for the next year, well, guess what she said? Same story. Next year's going to be hard on the housing market. Well, prices went up 16% since then, in that year rather. And of course, she missed out on that. And then a year and a half ago, she says, the housing boom is over, except that home values have gone up 18% since then, or another 80,000. You missed out on almost $250,000 on a $300,000 home if you listen to this woman. We can't listen to the media. We have to go by the facts. In the past 12 months, home prices have gone up 10%. So let's take a look at the facts. We know that a lot of people are talking about home inventory being tight, but there are some people saying, look at the rise we saw in inventory between April and July. That was a big jump. That's a bad thing, right? You see inventory jumping up. Well, if you look at it just like this, maybe you might have a point. But can we please, I want you to all look at this with a wider lens. This shows you 1 year's worth of data. Can we take a look at it, let's say for 10 years and see if we see a pattern? And you tell me if you do. Now, here's the chart I just showed you. Here's 1 year. That's what I just showed you. But doesn't it look like that happens every single year for the past 10 years? Yeah. I'll explain why. Parents want their kids to start at the beginning of the school year. There's two big reasons. Reason number one, if you come in the middle of the school year, kids might have friends, you might get picked on, it might be more difficult, and that could be tough on a kid. But the other thing is grades. You know, in our school system, we don't have teachers that teach the same. We don't have schools that teach the same. So you may be a star pupil in one school system with one teacher, but then when you move, it might be confusing and your grades might suffer. So parents don't want that. So when do they want to be in the new home? They want to be in June, July, or August. That's when they want to be in so the kid could start at the beginning of the school year. It makes sense. So when do I have to get rid of my home? When do I have to put it up on the market? Well, when? April, May, June, July. April, May, June, July. This was the COVID year, but it still started. April, May, June, July. April, May, June, every single year over and over. So don't buy this crap that they try to sell you. Okay, this is a normal cycle. And you can see it's already coming back down. Inventory will come back down just like it does every year. And by the way, you want to compare it to a housing bubble? Really? In 2007, we had 4 million units for sale in inventory. Now, since 2007, our population has grown by 30 million more people that need a place to live. But yet, look at inventory. It's only 1.2 million. It's less than a third of what it was in this entire market. Okay, this is huge drop in inventory, huge increase in population. And they want to say this is the same thing that happened in the housing bubble? Please. Now, here's the real story. I told you there's 1.2 million units, but guess what is counted in that? Believe it or not, that counts those under contract. They're off the market. What do? Knock on somebody's door that's got their home sold and they're closing next week? Oh, I thought we'd just look at it. No, of course you don't look at homes that are already sold and off the market. Really on the market, active listings in this beautiful country of 340 million people, there are only 754,000 homes for sale, and this number will continue to drop. Where is it comparatively speaking? Well, somebody might say, oh, there's more inventory than last year. Inventory's gone up. Yes, but it's half of what it normally is. It's still very tight. And here's the next headline. Big increase, foreclosures. They're up more than 150%. Oh my gosh, that's terrible. Really? Well, they're up more than 150% from last year, but that's because you couldn't do foreclosures last year because you had a moratorium most of the year or the year before. And it's still at the lower level than 2020 when you couldn't do moratoriums. Yes, it's up from last year when you almost a full year of no moratoriums, but still, do the media tell you it's down 60% from 2019? No. 95% from 2010? No. The media won't tell you that because that doesn't sell, right? What sells? Well, we know sex sells. We know fear sells. So what they're trying to do is push out fear porn. Don't buy into it. And of course, people are not going to give up their homes. Back in 2008, only 19% of a home's value was equity. You know how much it is today? 58%. People will protect that equity that they have in homes today. Not going to get the foreclosures. Now, here's a big one. Pay close attention because this is an important one. We need to understand affordability. And affordability is a critical one because the media talks about this every single day. Now, last year, if you were looking at a home, needed a mortgage of $400,000, you could get a rate of 3.5%. And that would have meant a $1,800 a month payment. Now, Fannie Mae tells us on average, their statistics, that if you have this kind of a mortgage payment, this is not the qualifying income, but this is the average income you had, was for your household $9,000. So like two people each making $5,000, $50,000 a year rather. Okay. How about this year? Well, home values have gone up 10%, right? So that means it's gone to 440. So 440 is the difference in because of appreciation and the mortgage amount you need. I need to borrow $40,000 more because the home went up by 10%. I'm borrowing 10% more. But the rate's also gone up from 3.5, let's call it 6.5. My payment's gone up $1,000 a month. And that's where the media stops. But what they don't tell you is hold on a second. Your income back here also went up. According to ADP, which is the best way to look at this, they measure 25 million records. No one else has that much of a record of it. If you stayed at your job, your income went up 7.6%. If you switched, it went up 15.9%. There's more stayers than switchers, so they average it to 9%. And what have you got here? Your income's gone up a lot. Not quite as much as the payment went up, but a lot. But here's the problem. I'm also paying more for gas, food, and services. And this is the market you have today. You have payments that are more than income, and that's why it's less affordable. That's why people are hibernating. That's why But what we need to do is look beyond the headlights. Can we just please look ahead a little bit? Because what's going to happen to incomes next year? Well, if you listen to ADP, who says 7.6% rise, well, now I've wiped out the difference. In fact, I've actually made it more affordable than it was last year. But wait a minute. What if we're right, and I believe we will be, on mortgage rates? And what if mortgage rates come down to 5%? Well, then I am dramatically more affordable today than I was in 2021 with a low inventory environment. You tell me what's going to happen to prices. You have to see the opportunity before anybody else does. You have to see the future before it becomes obvious. Our housing forecast is for low single-digit appreciation, but it's still strong, with rents also presenting a challenge for people because they're going to go up faster, showing people it's an opportunity to buy. Now, look, you want to see a perfect opportunity? Let me spell it out for you. Imagine a home that's $500,000 with 20% down. Now, last year, I had to give you $50,000 over asking price, and I couldn't get terms, maybe even out of home inspection. But now this is more like the housing market has always been, where you can negotiate. Okay, it's a $500,000 asking price. I'll give you $475. No way. I'll come back to $495. I'll counter. Okay, I'll counter at $485. Okay, let's agree at $490. And you got a deal. Now, that's only 2% price reduction, 2%. But that's kind of normal. So in a $500,000 home, you can get $10,000 off, which means I'm getting my home at a discount. But wait a minute. The reason they want to deal with you as a real estate agent and working with Movement Mortgage is because you're going to take that $10,000 and show them how you can turn that into much more money than $10,000. In fact, get ready for this statement. It's the worst thing you could do is take $10,000 as a price reduction. Why? Because instead of that, what you need to do is talk to your Movement Mortgage teammate and saying, where can we go if we use this as a seller contribution to buying their rate down? Because look, if you're a realtor, here's what's happening right now. You might have been working with a customer 4 months ago, and maybe they're still looking. It was tight inventory. And now 4 months ago, you know what you showed them? Based upon their qualification, they can't buy that house right now, right? And now they're spoiled because they looked at those more expensive homes. And now what you're showing them is not getting them excited. They feel like, right? You know, I don't have to tell you. You're all experiencing this. Except if the rate's lower, now you can show them the homes that they want. So let's take a look at this together. Talk to your Movement Mortgage teammate about a 2-1 buy down. It buys the rate down 2% the first year, then 1% the second year, then goes back to the normal rate. So the first year, it's going to save you $500 a month. The cost for that's about $9,000, but the rest of it, because the seller's giving you $10,000, you apply towards closing costs. The seller doesn't care. They're going to give you $10,000. They don't care if you take it as a price reduction or a seller contribution. They don't care. But your customer should care, and you should care, because now they can get that lower rate. And get this, next year, when rates come down, They refinance it. Now, is it going to cost them anything to refinance? Probably not. You know why? Because the way the 2-1 buy down works is that because this is in essence the borrower's money that the seller's giving them, but it's still considered the borrower's money, the unused portion goes back to the buyer, who then can use that money to pay for their refinance. So hold on, let me set this up for you. I get the home of my dreams today at a discount today, whereas last year I had to pay over asking price. And I get the rate that I need today at 4.5%. And next year when rates come down, I refinance and keep a low rate and it doesn't cost me anything. And when the horde of buyers comes into the market in a low inventory environment, I sit back and watch my property increase in value. I'm not going to chase it like I had last year and start to chase higher prices. I'm going to see the opportunity today when nobody else sees it, because you guys have good advice and you look like you have a crystal ball and you take advantage of that opportunity before anybody else does. This is the ground floor, folks. Now, you could also, if you don't like the 2-1 buy down, you could disproportionately use this to your advantage and buy the rate down by using the seller to pay points for you to buy your rate down. And you can get a rate today in the low 5s, which would still save you $300 a month, not quite the $500 here, but this is your fixed rate forever. And you could still refinance this. Team, this is the opportunity you've been waiting for. And what you can also do is use movement mortgage to show them mathematically why this is the best choice. See, first of all, you want to show them that this is empirical evidence, that mathematically it has to be the better choice. So if you were to take a look from a lowest payment standpoint, taking that money towards a seller contribution to a 2-1 buy down mathematically will be cheaper in payment, guaranteed for the first 2.5 years. After that, putting it towards that permanent buy down, meaning buying it all the way down to 5.25 the whole time, no 2-1 buy down where it changes. So just a regular fixed rate in the low 5s, that would be better from years 2.5 onward. Never, never will the price break be better. Now, what if you sell your home or refinance it anytime in here? What's better? Well, for the first 1.5 years, the 2-1 buy down is better. For a sliver of time between 1.5 and 2 years, and only slightly, would the price break be better. But 2 years and beyond, it is, and it grows and grows and grows to an even wider difference. The permanent buy down is your best bet. And you could parlay that price reduction into thousands, if not tens of thousands of greater savings. Talk to your movement mortgage professional to help show this to your customer with these graphs. This sets up a perfect opportunity, everybody. You've got incomes increasing. You've got tight inventory. So affordability be there in a tight inventory environment with rates dropping. That increased buyer activity has to push prices higher. Some people say, well, should I rent? Well, let's take a look at that. Should you rent even with a higher rate? Well, let's take a look. Let's imagine purchase price of $400,000, 10% down is a loan of $360,000. And let's get crazy. Rates are much cheaper than this, but let's even say 7%, and let's even get insane and say they never refinance off of 7%, which we're making it really ugly to purchase the home. And they're going to live there for 9 years. Now, hold on a second here, because if you buy a home versus renting, you do have other expenses to think of. You have to think about property taxes can go up. You can have to think about repair costs, which if you don't have as a renter, and you have to think of the cost of selling a home. Let's put all that in. And the cost of selling the home, let's go by the 63-year historical average of appreciation of 4.75% to come up with a value and take 6% of that as your expenses to sell it. So let's make this really expensive to buy. Now, renting, while rents are going up at 8%, yours is only going to go up at 6%. Then let's say you get this place at a discount of $3,000 a month on a $400,000 home. Should you buy or rent? Now, somebody's going to look at this and say, how much is the payment? Well, the monthly payment to buy is $3,500. To rent, it's $3,000. No brainer. I should rent. It's $500 a month cheaper. Not so fast. That rent goes up over time. By the 4th year, the rent's more expensive, and over the 9 years, and this, by the way, assumes you never refinance off the 7%. If you refinance, then your payment is much cheaper to buy. You'd save $33,000 in cash flow by buying. But wait a minute. When somebody says it's $500 cheaper to rent, they're wrong. I say, Barry, how could it be wrong? It's $500 cheaper. No, it's not, because part of your payment that you make in a mortgage is principal. Principal is your own money. Look, team, let's just say I have cash in my left-hand pocket. I take the cash out of my left-hand pocket. I switch it. I put it in my right-hand pocket. My question to you, is it still my money? Well, of course it's still my money, but it's in a different location. When that money's sitting in my checking account, it's my money. When I write the check to my lender for my mortgage payment, the principal portion is in equity in my home. Is it still my money? Of course, it's just in a different location. How much does that principal amount to over the 9 years? $44,000. And nobody talks about it. That's why your movement mortgage professional can help you. $77,000. Now, wait a minute. What about appreciation on the home? For the last 63 years, we've averaged 4.75%. By the way, the forecast for the next 10 years is for to be on average 5.5%. But let's take the past 63 years. 4.75% on a $400,000 home, compounded annual. It's hard to do that math, which is why Albert Einstein said it's the eighth wonder of the world. So our clients can't do this on their own. We have to show them. And when we show them, it's life-changing. It's $207,000. $207,000. Wow. Now, you're going to have to sell the home and you're going to have expenses of selling it at that new purchase, at that new sale price. But you do get a little tax benefit. So what's the benefit of buying instead of renting? A life-changing $254,000. And this would be over $300,000, by the way, over the 9 years if you refinance to a little lower rate. And you could see each of these years, except for the first year, you're making lots of money by buying instead of renting. So my true answer to the customer is, hey, look, if you're going to be moving in the first year, rent, don't buy. The cost to get in, the cost to get out are going to outweigh the benefit. But if you're going to be there more than 2 years, why would you not buy this home? Team up with your movement mortgage professional and have this at every open house. In fact, if you're a real estate agent, why in the world would you not have this on your listing presentation to show this is how I'm going to market your home? Why wouldn't you do that? In fact, did you know that 1 out of every 6 transactions in investment property, are you getting your fair share? Are 1 out of every 6 transactions you're doing investment properties? Because you should be getting that. The problem is that there was never a tool that you could use to illustrate the benefit of an investment property until now. And your movement mortgage professional has it and they can share it with you. And it looks like this. Let's say a purchase price of $500,000, 25% down, say a 7% with 1 point is the deal on this that you can get. They're going to own the home for 10 years. Let's take all our costs we said, the cost to buy, the cost to sell, the repair costs, the taxes going up, and the future appreciation. And you can rent this home on the cheap for $3,500 a month. And while rents are going up at 8%, you're only going to charge 6% more a year. And your vacancy factor is what it is in the United States right now, 4%. Now, look, in the first year, you're going to have a little negative cash flow, but by the 10th year, really big positive cash flow. And you're going to make 54% on your cash-on-cash return. But the big money is going to come from appreciation and amortization. Here's your final spreadsheet that shows rental income, $530,000. That's after your vacancy is taken into consideration. Appreciation, $350,000. Your gross revenue minus your expenses for interest, property taxes, insurance, repairs, closing costs to buy and sell, you made $415,000 on this. Your investment was $125,000. You made a 332% return on your investment. If you take that over 10 years on average, that's 15.8%. Look, if you're working as a money manager at Fidelity, they're going to put you in the Hall of Fame, okay? That's why you make so much money in real estate. That's why it's so important. Why wouldn't you have this at every listing presentation? Why wouldn't you show this at every open house? Why not? Look, we all want to create wealth, and real estate creates wealth for people. In fact, let's look at net worth. If you want to be in the top 1% in the United States, Kiplinger's did a study to show, and they said to be in the top 1% in the United States, you know what your net worth has to be? That's all your assets minus all your debt, all your liabilities. You have to have a net worth of 10.8 million. Big number. Okay, so how about the top 2%? Pretty close. Oh, 2.5 million. How about the top 5%? That's a very exclusive club still. 1 million. How about to be in that top 10%, man? That's really high level. 800,000. How about to be in the top half? 500,000. Wow. So wait a minute here. In this study, while this is interesting, you know what they showed? 2/3 of all this net worth, guess where it came from? Yeah, you guessed it. Home equity. You're not going to be rich renting, and you're not going to gain net worth if you're not in the real estate game. If you're going to listen to the media scare you out of buying real estate, you're not going to get into these upper echelons. And here's something else your movement mortgage teammate could do is give you an appraisal. You don't want people going to Zillow for that AVM because then they're going to steal your customers away. Build your own AVM. It takes 10 seconds for your movement professional to do it. And what will it do? Show you the entire neighborhood, all the values, all what it is in different bedrooms, give you an appraised value. What a great thing to present at a listing. What a great thing to have at an open house. And by the way, when you present at a listing, here's all your comps done for you with where they located on a map and all the market trends in your area. What a professional listing presentation. What a great thing to have at an open house. Real estate. And by the way, social media too. Why don't you advertise it on social media with that? Your movement mortgage professional could help you do that. And the real estate report card, it's crazy if you don't use this. Your movement mortgage professional can do this for you in seconds. And what does it do? Everything you want on there. How does it stack up? What's past appreciation? What's the future forecast? How much will this home appreciate up to based upon that? What are the medians in the market? What's the demographics for ages? What's the rental situation look like? How many households will be formed and how many homes are built? Because we have the builder data, affordability, unemployment, income, jobs, everything you want on one sheet of paper. Why shouldn't this not be in your listing presentation? You want to get a listing and make your competition look silly? Just talk to your movement mortgage teammate. And in a couple of minutes, they'll give you all the ammunition you need. You want to market that home better? Do it. You want to do it on social media? Have it. And this is what you'd be looking at. You know, when we look at the way that the media is talking about the market today, I don't know if you saw the article. American Banker said, is it time to quit mortgage? They cited that refinances are down 85%, 50 to 60% drop in volume. Maybe you should get out. And there's a lot of negativity out there. The only thing is that this article, it was written in 2014. Look, it is always darkest before the dawn. And if you're a little nervous right now, if you're a little worried, I don't blame you, but I want you to look past it and look at the facts of what's coming. Imagine those people that got out in 2014. What did they miss? They missed great years and then the greatest market ever. Good times are ahead. You know, Sir John Templeton was the best investor, and he said, the time of maximum pessimism is the best time to buy. That's where the opportunities are. Thanks to you folks, you've helped me to create a best-selling book which talks about finding those opportunities. I believe that your best opportunities are in front of you. If you want to stay in touch with me on Instagram, because I post a lot of stuff about the housing market there, here it is. I am Barry Habib, and you could take my videos, you could share them. They're 30 seconds. They talk about all the positivity in the housing market. And I know we went like a couple of minutes over here, gentlemen. I'm sorry, but I want to see if you have any questions that I can answer. I'm here for you guys if you want me here.
Yeah, no, thank you, Barry. And man, wow, just action-packed. Love it. Love how you always bring it. Just some general questions I've seen just in this chat or just people talking about, hey, where can I get access? Is there a cost for me to get access to the reports? The great thing is, and Barry really demonstrated this today, is having data and facts in front of you to go have those conversations. And the thing I took away too, Barry, the biggest thing, which I always do, you've always said to me for years and years, ever since I first met you, about being that trusted advisor. And all of us on this call should be, you know, that trusted advisor is providing options to your clients and giving them options to take a look at so they get to choose what's best for them. So the great thing is you can just get with your movement partners and you can get access to all this. So as an organization, we knew that this was an investment we wanted to make in our partnership with Barry. So what we did is we gave this access to all of our movement employees, have access to this. So I would just encourage you, reach out to the person that invited you. If you just got this link, just reach out to just the movement team.
And it doesn't cost them anything. I've saw it come by. It doesn't cost you anything. And some people are asking for the slides. Your movement professional has access to some of the slides, not all of them. Yeah. And there's more that will be released in the next 2 weeks of these that will release to them. So they'll have more. So stay in touch with them because more of those slides will be released that you can give a presentation, a shorter version of this, like 10 minutes, which have your movement mortgage professional in front of you with a buyer so they can give that presentation to them. We're coming up with that now and they'll have that handy.
That's awesome. Well, Barry, thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Jake, man, this was a great Zoom that we did today. We're just so grateful for your partnership, Barry, and just really excited. So Jake, any last things before we close out?
No, Barry hit the nail on the head. Get with your movement loan officer for access to some of the slides. Most of our loan officers are power users of the MBS Highway tool. they'll be able to provide all this information and more. Really appreciate all of you attending. We know that you are so busy right now, so we appreciate you spending some time with us. Barry, on behalf of Mike, thank you, my man. Looking forward to doing it again. Thanks for
you,
attending,
everyone.
everybody.
God bless you guys. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Happy and a healthy year ahead. A prosperous one for everybody.